Well, thank you for inviting me to talk. Hopefully you can hear me all right and I don't wander off too much. I'm not mic'd properly. I'm Dave Martyn. I work at Bauer Media. The division I work in is Bauer Excel, and I focus on classifieds. I have a strong background in product management and consultancy, all online, and worked for projects with a bunch of people like you see up there. What I want to talk about is following on from yesterday. I think yesterday there was some talks about lean and that kind of process, and we've heard all the speakers today have mentioned at some stage data or iteration and all these good lean principles. So I want to talk about an actual case study of how that information has been used and that process has been used for us redesigning a website to make an actual impact for our customers and on our revenue. So the first place to start is around software is pretty complex, and we're pretty used to, unfortunately, in the enterprise world, using software that's reasonably horrendous. So I want to take an example of something like Microsoft Project Manager. Very complex tool, lots of features. Typically people need training to use it, etc., etc. This kind of tool isn't the kind of software we can produce as publishers for our customers to use. Instead, we have to produce something that's very, very simple. In the project management example, there's a competitor called Basecamp, which is much simpler, or even simpler product called Trello, which many people use for project management. And these tools are super simple. There's no manual, there's no training, there's not even any deployment internally. Typically, enterprise users just go to the website and start using it and making a difference and being productive. And I think when we think about that from a product standpoint, our products have to have the same thing, whether it's people enjoying information from the Mothering website or consuming news on Newsweek or whatever it is. It's a product that's got to be consumed in some manner and used in some fashion. And we've got to deliver it very, very simply. Many people will have moved their delivery mechanism internally, the way their technology works, to Agile. Can I just have a small show of hands if anybody internally uses that buzzword and says, hey, we're an Agile team internally? No one? No show of hands? A few? Okay. Maybe a few not wanting to put their hands up for some reason. It's typically the way the internal team works on any delivery of technology today. So if we're going to launch a website or change our website or whatever we're doing, typically the tech team is running Agile. And the way the business interacts with Agile is the product owner. There is this one role that interfaces what our needs are. And this is intended to get rid of large amounts of paperwork and huge amounts of analysis and all this other stuff that we used to do in software in the past. The problem with this is it's a pretty weak link. The success and failure of that product that gets delivered is really down not just to the team that deliver it and design it, but to their understanding of the consumer and the business needs. And the product owner is that conduit. So we need to replace the tools that currently that product owner is given and give them new things to use. And that's where the lean piece really comes in, and that iterative experimental cycle. And I think somebody spoke on this yesterday, so I won't bore you with it again. But the key thing being that we build, measure, learn, and keep going around that cycle. So I'm going to give you an example of how we did this. And we didn't choose to do it in a trendy, upbeat, millennial market full of smartphones and everything else and whiz kids. The case study I chose to use for today is where middle-aged men, typically, not all, but that's the target demographic, like to buy and sell old cars. And they typically enjoy spending their Sunday afternoon looking in a field at lots of old cars. This is the classic car market. The website in question is Classic Cars for Sale. Our challenge internally as a business is that our car dealers who sell and buy these cars aren't getting enough inquiries. So the business challenge for this project was to increase inquiries to that marketplace. So we started off, instead of jumping straight into that build measure cycle, much like somebody else talked about research earlier on and getting out and talking to customers, we started off by talking to the customer. And the first to understand and form hypotheses of what we believe was the case. The learn, build, measure cycle will then validate those hypotheses and help us build a great product. So we picked up the phone to have 50 to 100 customers who had been on our website and inquired about a vehicle. That ranged from people looking to buy £1,000 Ford Capris, that's deemed a modern classic market, all the way through to people buying Bentleys and DB9 Aston Martins worth £250,000 upwards. So a very wide market. And we simply chatted with them on the phone. We asked them, did they remember the site? How did it get on? Did the dealer help them? Did they find any problems? Did they buy the vehicle? We learned huge amounts of information by just asking simple open-ended questions. And all that information we brought back to our base, analysed it, and tried to work out different groupings and hypotheses and segment our user base. Interestingly, we discovered we had a large amount of investors on the market in the product that we weren't necessarily thinking about. So we had pure enthusiasts and investors were the two big groups. Investors were buying vehicles, not even looking at them, not visiting them, never seeing the car, just having it sent straight to storage. Hadn't even, had no interest. It was a pure asset investment. They would stay in storage until they decided to relinquish their investment and gain their return on their capital. We then shifted from trying to understand, I think the phrase I'll borrow from somebody else earlier, humanity, the human side of it. We then shifted to the data side. We've got a lot of hypothesis and we wanted to validate some of that information and really get to the detail of is that true? Does that ring true to us? And there were some things that didn't ring true, specifically the volume of effort an individual goes to researching a vehicle before they bought it. We have other classified products, and I've worked on many in the past, and especially in the more pragmatic market of, say, modern cars, the buy cycle is very short compared. What the research showed, really digging into the user behaviour, using simple tools like Google Analytics, was an awful lot of effort goes on. And you can see in that picture in the background, each little line there is the amount of involvement an individual had with us before they inquired for a vehicle. So if we just look at the top one, I think you might be able to see it slightly greyed out next to 17. It shows that they came directly to us that time. Next time they visited, each one is a visit. Next session they came, we bought them. The next session was organic, the next one was direct. They came a lot of times and visited us a lot of different channels to get to us before they eventually decided to inquire for a vehicle. So using that data, we further understood and validated those hypotheses we came up with. Now is the creative time to really do something with that information. I hear an awful lot about, we use data, and very few times do I get anybody to show me what do they actually use it for. What is the decision that it's making? So we use that information and that inspiration to focus on how do we help enthusiasts who visit our site a lot and understand what it is they're really about, and how do we help the investor. Initially, we focused on the enthusiast, and we came up with lots of different ideas and hypotheses. Probably the biggest was that our consumer was exploring, and all that data we had, and lots I can't show because just too much of it, really showed they didn't come to the site to go, I want to buy an Aston Martin. They came to the site with a style or a type of car in their mindset, definitely a budget, and they'd explore because it was their hobby, and they'd look at a wide variety of vehicles. Now, typically, like most classified sites, our site was search-orientated. And the web is brilliant for search. Ironically, it's pretty poor at browsing. In fact, the old print is pretty good at browsing. I can quickly scan a load of ads of completely different types of vehicles and get inspired. Browse is ironically quite hard to achieve online. So quickly that became one of the key things for us. How do we improve exploration? How do we help the user browse a wide variety? So we took all those hypotheses, we had loads of them, and we used a tool that we borrowed from a company called Strategizer. And the tool here is two particular layouts of running lean experiments called a test card and a learning card. A test card starts along this sort of mantra of we believe that, whatever. To verify it, we will. What are we going to do? What's the test? We're going to measure, and we're right if. So that sets the space for the test. What is it we're going to test? And the test might be an online A/B test of two different things. It might be a paper-based prototype. It might be going out and surveying people. It might simply be going and be talking to people. Lots of different ways to perform the test, but that's the structure that we use to do it. And then the other side is the learning card. What's the outcome of the test? And that follows a similar thing. We believe that. We observed, so what was the raw data? What was the outcome? From that we learned. Very big difference between what's the data and what's the learning. What did we interpret that to mean? What did it mean to us? And therefore we will. So now we know this, and now we've learnt this, what are we going to do with it? Quite a critical piece. Worked as a consultant in a lot of businesses that were lean, did a lot of learning, but then didn't do anything with the learning. So that last piece often gets missed. For this case study of classic cars for sale, we ran over a 6-week period, 16 different experiments, quite a few of those iterated. And we looked at a lot of different areas, focusing primarily on how we improve that conversion, visit to inquiry conversion, which was our business goal. An example of what one of those might look like, so you can see it. This example was changing, not changing anything on the site other than adding simple links to click to on the homepage next to the search box to explore. And it wasn't how we want it to look, it wasn't the beautiful design we would like, it was very much just testing if we put links for makes and models at the top of the page, would people click it? It was only ran for a short period initially, because it wasn't beautifully polished and how we'd want it to be, it wasn't production ready, it was an experiment, and we chose what percentage of our user base we would expose to that experiment in our A/B test so we could manage that risk, and quickly got the test edge. And that mantra is how we managed to do 16 tests in 6 weeks. In that particular example, you can see the numbers there and observe, 19% of all the people that visited the homepage clicked on those links, and receive more clicks than models, because there's variation of type of link there. Our bounce rate to the homepage dropped considerably, nearly 20%. The listings result pages, which is the search results, so if a list of all the Astons we might have for sale, those pages, the page views of listings increased by around 12%. The view of actual ad pages, the actual individual vehicle detail page, they went up, and inquiries went up. So from our perspective, this was a really good test. Unfortunately, they didn't all have such rosy results, which I say unfortunately, it's a good thing, because those ones that didn't have rosy results, we tested very quickly. We learned that wasn't the right thing to be doing, and we were able to discount that idea and learn and take that learning to change our future thinking. So it wasn't really unfortunate. From this particular test, clearly we learned that prompted search was really important, and we've got to build that into the new design. It's got to be a key design goal. A different example here, we changed the layout of the page. You don't need to really worry about the detail. Really all it's saying is we dramatically moved the layout around on the vehicle detail page. Our layout wasn't necessarily the same as other sites. It was quite different. We decided we wanted to perhaps follow a phrase, maybe the de facto standard, the standard that nearly all the other classified sites had a certain look and feel to that page. The inquire button was always at the top right in the same place, ours wasn't. So we moved things around to copy the industry standard, so to speak. And from that, we definitely improved conversions, etc. In fact, we improved it so well on that particular test, we weren't willing to wait for the redesign. We just switched the test on to 100% and left it running, because we were improving the business. So we ran lots of other things. We've changed, if people prefer the results in grid or list, does the layout, different layouts, how do we reorder result, all sorts of clear, real intricate detail. We even tested, because part of the redesign was to look a bit more modern, we were looking a bit old-fashioned and a bit 90s almost. We tried a different design style and A/B tested the impact that had. What's important here is the outcome wasn't the decisions of what goes into the redesign and what doesn't, wasn't what's known as the hippo effect, wasn't the highest paid person's opinion. It wasn't somebody in the room with the right job title going, we're going to do it that way. I like flat design, so we'll do flat design. The decisions were made based on data gleaned from our actual audience. That made a big difference. It also made for some very interesting discussions, because quite often the results weren't what people expected of all grades. And so we're quite a flat organisation in that sense, but it didn't really, quite often it was a surprise. I know on one page we tested having a grid with 3 little thumbnails of images on a particular page and expected it to work better. This big grid full of cars, I could browse them, and it didn't. It worked better with it was just 2x6 grid in this example. That worked far better, even though it wasn't what we expected. Do we know why? Unfortunately, no, we don't. We have no idea why. We would love to go and get that learning of why, but we do know what works best. And in reality, to make a difference in our business, knowing what works best is enough for us at this stage, so we went and did that. We are obviously wanting to learn the why later, and we're carrying on talking with people. That's harder to get that insight, but it doesn't change the decision we made for the business. So the redesign looks like that. I personally don't like some of it, even though it's my project. I really don't like the big buttons at the top with all the cars to click on. However, it works better than anything else. So it's not about what I like. I am not the target audience. This product is not designed for me. I have no interest in classic cars. I'm not yet middle-aged, and it's not for me. So the audience who it is for preferred this by a long way. And just how long is this? Page views went up year on year, 43% from the redesign to the non-redesign. We're a very seasonal business, so we have to look at year on year. The month-on-month changes were far more dramatic, but seasonality has to be taken into consideration. Bounce rate was dropped. Organic search was up significantly, which was really interesting. The explore buttons and those links, Google liked them, which wasn't a design goal. We weren't trying to be SEO friendly any more than we always try to be. We were trying to be consumer friendly, and it just so happened that the two nicely mashed together. And most importantly for us, response to dealers was up by over 50%, just over 50%. So that was a really good story for us. Dramatic increase without needing to spend heaps of money on, we'd have to spend half as amount of money on marketing to get the same uplift. The entire project took 3 months. The dev cycle was only very short because we knew exactly what we want building. There wasn't lots of changing as we went through it. We were able to go live with certain features early and get the benefit, and we knew we were making the right decisions. So our product owner in that agile, go back to the agile thing at the beginning, was able to talk with the developers and the designers and know exactly what they needed. They didn't talk saying, I need the box to look like this, but they were able to say exactly what the goals were, exactly what the consumer needed, and provide the great team we have of designers and developers exactly the information they needed to deliver something that would be valuable both to our consumer and to us as a business. So to summarise that, the sell I have for you today is lean, and in the sense of informing the redesign project, it was about experimented learning with validation. It was around avoiding the hippo effect. As much as gut feel does feel the right thing, quite often it's wrong. We did kill features that weren't used. What I didn't show is we got rid of a lot of features. We took out heaps of features that the data proved were not helping our goal. For example, we had a large news section, and we were very good at writing loads of great news content. We own a large news and a large classic car print portfolio with some amazing content, and we tried to resurface a lot of that content. But our business doesn't make money online. This particular business doesn't make money online from people reading the news. And the research, the data showed only 1% of all people that had read a news article had ever inquired for a car. And when we look at the cost of acquisition of publishing that content versus the 1% and how else we could spend that money and get more than 1%, we killed it completely. So we're really quite ruthless to do the one thing well, back to that simplicity, focusing on just selling cars. And finally, we made sure we had data in the right places to track all of our decisions and continuously improve as we are now, being able to continue the journey instead of it being a one-off project. Hopefully that fitted into the 10 minutes and wasn't just about right.
Thank you very much indeed.